Hello and welcome to another episode of me reacting to fan-made cards I found online. This is the second episode on a bunch of cards that were sent to me by Mokeji. And after last episode, he actually sent me an updated version of some of the cards I talked about in the first one, and also new versions of the ones I was going to talk about today. And now there's so many cards that I will have to make 3 episodes about this whole set. And we're going to start off today's episode with a few ones that we haven't talked about so far, and then later we will talk about a few updated ones. But first of all, here we have Quantum Asteroid, which I think is a really interesting card because it's a space event which requires 2 science and space tags. And now I wonder whether or not this requires 4 tags in total, so 2 science and 2 space tags, or if they can be, if it's just 2 tags, either 1 science tag or 1 space tag, or 2 science tags or 2 space tags, or how this all works. I think this could be clarified a little bit. But interesting requirement for a space event, especially for an asteroid space event, because for example, we have ICS, which is a space event and requires science, but that's not an asteroid, that's like a colony ship. So quite interesting. But the lore text makes it sound really sciencey, so I guess that's quite cool. And the effect is really creative. It grants 3 TR and lets you remove 10 heat from another player. I'm actually not sure if there's a card that lets you remove heat directly. I mean, obviously there's heat trappers, which lets you lower heat production for some other player, and I hate that card, but it's a great card. I don't know about if there's any card that lets you remove heat, but that's quite cool. If we like think about the cost of this card, 1 TR is worth 8.5 MC because of release of inert gases, which costs 14 plus 3 and grants 2 TR. So 8.5 times 3, that's 1725.5, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Which is a little bit less than 26, which this card costs. So just for the TR, the card is not really worth it. But obviously, it being a space event makes it much better than just a regular event. You can pay for it with titanium, there's space discounts, and optimal air braking. At the same time, the requirement obviously makes it worse again. So you really have to factor in this minus 10 TR. Minus 10, not TR, that would be busted. Minus 10 heat. And with that, I think it can be quite a good card, especially because it's a space event that doesn't terraform. I mean, you get terraforming rating, but it doesn't help you end the game. So this is quite a good card for engine players. It's a way to spend a lot of money on points, a lot of titanium on points. It has a lot of combo potential, which engine players might have. It grants points, and at the same time, it slows down the game tremendously by removing heat. And if you can combine this with other cards that remove plants, you can really slow down engine players with this. And also because this is, to my knowledge, but correct me if I'm wrong, the only card that removes heat, people are not going to expect it. If you have this in like a huge deck of cards, you draw this, then you can really surprise your opponents. So even though I think the TR plus the tax and the requirement and the price suggests this card is not that strong, the minus 10 heat makes it quite strong, I think. All right, let's get to the next one, atmospheric conditioning. This is like an idea which has been thrown around quite a bit. It costs 6, is an event card. It lets you remove an ocean from play, and you gain a TR. So it's almost fair value for the TR alone, because as we established with the last card, 1 TR costs 8.5 MC, this costs 9, 6 plus 3. At the same time, it also lets you remove an ocean from play. Obviously, for some strategies, that makes the card insanely bad, because if you're playing a rush strategy, you do not want to remove oceans. You want to be able to end the game as fast as possible. So for those strategies, atmospheric conditioning is really bad. You will never want to play it. But for engine players, this again can be really strong, because you can slow down the pace of the game and prevent your opponents from finishing the game. Also, if you know that your opponent has drawn into something like kelp, maybe it was revealed at the start with experimental forest, or you had to pass it to him in the draft because you didn't want to give him, I don't know, GAA or something, then you can use atmospheric conditioning to slow down the pace at which oceans get played and prevent them from playing kelp farming sooner. Also, the sentence "cannot be played when Mars is fully terraformed" is really important, because that means if the game is over, everyone passes except one player. He cannot just play atmospheric conditioning and make everyone suffer through one more gen. Maybe everyone has sold their cards already and stuff like that. So this is really important, that it says "cannot be played when Mars is fully terraformed." I think card might be a little bit too strong, because it's almost fair value already. And that means it's quite strong for engine players, useless for rush players. That's a cool trade-off, but maybe too strong for engine players. Not quite sure yet. Next up, we have thermophilic evergreens. Let me make that a little bit smaller. This costs 13 MC, has a requirement of 2 degrees Celsius, has a plant tag and an event tag, so similar to Harvest. You can lower the temperature by 1 step and place a greenery. Once again, Mars must not be fully terraformed. That's important again, because otherwise you could, once again, prevent the game from ending once everyone has passed already and everyone assumes the game to end. If we compare this to Mangrove, which costs 12, comes with a point. The requirement is basically the same, and the green tag remains in play afterwards, although that's not really that useful at that stage of the game. You will probably not need the tag remaining in play after you played the card. Thermophilic evergreens doesn't look that great. It costs 1 MC more. It doesn't grant the same additional point, and you have to place it like a usual greenery, and cannot freely place it on an ocean tile, which has definitely has a value on Mangrove as well. But of course, we have to factor in this temperature bump. This once again means that it is better for engine players. I guess one thing with heat and oxygen, lowering heat or oxygen is different from lowering oceans, because as a rush player, you could even play this in the last gen, lower the temperature if you still have heat, and then increase it again to get another TR out of the heat, out of the temperature track. You cannot do the same thing with oceans, because oceans you always have to pay for with a card or with a standard project. If you have too much heat, you can play thermophilic evergreens and still end the game in the same amount of gens, or with paying the same amount of money. Obviously, there's trade-offs with like Thermalist and stuff, but let's say you're playing on Elysium, then you can definitely do this. I think, once again, quite interesting. I don't think it's as strong or needs to be nerfed in comparison to the card we just talked about with the ocean. With these cards that let you lower terraforming parameters, I really need to play with them to see if they are really frustrating to play against. At that stage in the game, there's less additional reasons to play it. You're not preventing anyone from playing, I don't know, farming or something like that. by playing thermophilic evergreens. It could happen, but really rarely. Also, there's not, if heat is not the first track to be maxed out, then there's not much time to play this. Maybe Oxygen and Oceans already got maxed out, and then you are really hard pressed to even play this before Mars is fully terraformed and you cannot play it anymore. So really interesting concept. As I said, I'd have to play test these, but I love the event plus plant combo. It's really rare in the game. So yeah, let's move on. And another one of these, this one is called Forest Fire. And there we forgot the text that says, no, we didn't. It just decreases, you just remove a greenery, you do not decrease the oxygen. So you don't need the requirement that Mars can't be fully terraformed. Okay, I wanted to say Mokeji forgot that sentence with Forest Fire, but he didn't. So let's go through this card from the start. Costs 20 MC, quite expensive. Requires at least 8% oxygen. I guess because fire requires oxygen, that makes sense. It's an event, and it increases the temperature 2 steps, and you can remove a greenery, any greenery. But as I said, you do not decrease the oxygen, so you can also do this if Mars is fully terraformed, but then you lose a lot of its value because you don't get the 2 temperature bumps. This can be insane. This could be played in the last gen when your opponent can't react anymore. And if they don't have enough plants or plant production to get another greenery down after the gen, you could theoretically remove a greenery in between 3 of their cities, which scores them 4 points in total, 1 for the greenery and 3 for the adjacent cities, and remove that. And yeah, they lose 4 points, you gain 2 through the temperature bumps, and that could be a huge point swing for 20 plus 3. That's a really specific scenario. Most of the time, the opponent probably won't have more than 2 of the cities adjacent to one of their greeneries, but it can happen. Often they will have plant production and can replace that greenery after the gen, but then they lose a greenery in another spot. This can still, in suboptimal situations, be a really, really strong card. Obviously, with the requirement, the temperature bumps still having to be available for the max value, and yeah, your opponent having to place greeneries in specific spaces where they score a lot of points. This is quite niche. You could use it to, like, I wanted to say you could use it to prevent someone from picking up Gardener, but with the 8% oxygen requirement, there would need to be a few bumpers in the game for this to make sense. But obviously, it can help in the fight surrounding Cultivator or Landlord. A lot going on. I think the ceiling is really high on this card, therefore I quite like it, because it's also quite niche. In some situations, this doesn't really pay off, in my opinion, or it's too expensive. I like the card. I really like it, and because it doesn't lower a terraforming parameter, I think it's easier to implement and isn't as likely to break the game or be really frustrating. It can be, it definitely is really frustrating as a hate card, but in the right ways. The same way as I think something like Virus is really, really frustrating and cool at the same time. But let's move on. And I think this is the last card before we get to the updated ones. Amazonas Republic. And this is a City Corp. And in contrast to Tharsis, which really should have a city tag, this one does have one. And it starts with 40 MC. Not that great starting capital, but at least 2 MC prod. That's nice. And you immediately get to place a city. you have an ongoing effect that all city tiles give you an adjacency bonus of +1 MC. So whether or not you're placing something next to one of your opponent's cities or one of your cities, you get 1 MC per city. So cities act like oceans, but a little bit worse because it's 1 MC instead of 2. And also you can freely place cities adjacent to your cities. So not next to opponent cities, but next to your cities, which can be quite handy in some situations, but obviously you'd rather place a lot of greenery surrounding your cities. Cities are not that strong on their own, and if you just place a bunch of cities next to each other, they don't do anything. But for the flexibility, that can be quite nice. And then also, you might have spotted this already, and you're thinking, holy crap, that's way too strong. There's a text here saying, 1 VP per open, in brackets, domeless city you have. All cities which build when oxygen is 12% or higher are considered open or domeless. Denote open cities with 2 player markers if playing without domes. And this last sentence is, I think with the 3D version, you can place domes above your cities. I don't have it, so I don't really know. So you can score a few points with this, but you will not be placing that many cities after 12% oxygen, I bet. Only if there's like no heat in the game. If none of the players are developing a lot of heat prod, cities become much better because oxygen will probably be maxed out first, and to still score from your plant prod in a long game where temperature is rising really slowly, you want cities down. And then you're also placing cities in the late game. And then these city, this Amazonas Republic effect where you score points from late game cities will score quite a bit. One question I'd have is, off-mass cities after 12% oxygen, do they count? Because law-wise that doesn't really make sense, right? But because if I place something like Stanford Taurus, which is just placed in space, I bet that one isn't domeless in the lore. That one is surely not just floating in space and everyone is suffocating. But that could be still clarified. You just have to say on Mars cities after 12% oxygen, whatever. So how strong is this? In total, I think there's quite a few things going on. It's not a super fast, but an all right start because of the 2 MC prod. Basically, it's as if you start with 49 MC because 2 MC prod is worth 9 MC. That's all right. The city, of course, has value, especially on Tharsis or on Tharsis for Mayor, on Hellas for Polar Explorer, and maybe picking up the South Pole, or on Elysium for picking up the 3 plants, or if you really want the 3 cards, but that's a bad city spot. So the city definitely has value. And the city tag is also valuable, especially on Hellas for Diversifier. Then this effect with the adjacency bonus, that's quite nice, especially if you get a lot of plant prod or special tiles. You can really annoy your opponents with this. The freely placeable cities, also quite nice, and the points also quite nice. So there's a lot of stuff coming together. And I think in the end, this makes an alright corp that can be quite fun to play with and quite frustrating to play against, especially because of this effect, these 2 effects basically. So yeah, I quite like it. I think it's really creative, and I'd like to play with this and try it out. But yeah, let's place a small cut here. I'll jump to the updated versions of the cards we have discussed last time. And yeah, see you in a second. All right, the first one is Focused Research. This is the version we discussed last time. I said I think it's quite strong. And basically, the price was adjusted. It was made 1 MC cheaper, but the point was removed. And also the wording was adjusted. So basically this card lets you reveal a bunch of cards depending on whether or not on how many events you've played. You name one tag and take all cards with that tag to hand. Also, Mukherjee in the under the last video commented that he would mean for this to be that you have to name the tag first before you draw the cards. So you play focused research, you say, I want to take building tags, then you reveal cards and you take all building tags. So that you don't reveal cards, look at how which tag is appearing most often, and then you just say that tag and take all of those cards. You have to say it beforehand, which makes it more of a gamble and I think is more fun. So yeah, I think this update is great. This card can be really insane in the late game. In some games you play 10 events or something like that. And if you're really looking for a specific kind of card, maybe you want another Jovian multiplier, or you are sitting on a lot of steel, then you can name Jovian tags or building tags and try to find a card that really fulfills all your needs. So I think the update is quite nice. We then have world government corruption, and this is just a correction because I was dumb and didn't understand the card last time. So this is the original version, and the updated version looks like this. If you read the card, you will notice it's the same card, just with an updated version. In contrast to what I said last time, you do not claim the milestone or award when playing this card. You just double its cost. And that makes it much cooler in situations where you have no chance of getting a specific milestone, or you want to prevent your opponent from funding a specific award that you know you have no chance on, then you can play World Government Corruption. The trade-off, of course, is the cost. It costs 3 MC to buy this card and 2 MC to play it. If you don't draw it for free and have no combo potential, and also there's a negative VP on it. So in total, this card costs 5 plus 5 for the point, so 10. So you really need to be certain that what you're doing is worth it, or you need to have drawn this for free or have combo potential for it. But it can be really nice, especially in the award case. If you maybe have fun at one award, your opponent has fun at another one, and you know there's one award he's certainly going to win, and you are not sure on the other two, so you don't want to fund anything, you can play World Government Corruption and double the cost of that one award that he was going to win anyways. So really nice card, and thanks Mukherjee for clarifying this. I was just dumb. All right, then we have Administrative Capital. I said that this was too strong last time, and apparently a few people on Reddit, where Mukherjee also posted these cards, agreed. So it got nerfed a little bit. By a little bit, I mean quite a bit, because it costs one power prot more now. I think there's no other change to it. Yeah, exactly. There's no other change to it. I think now it makes more sense. It still can be quite strong. Can score a lot of points. It's basically now similar to how Capital can score a lot of points and grant quite a bit of MC prot, but costs 2 power prot. I think that's fair. All right. Then we have Green City. This is the original version. What I lamented on last time was how insanely difficult it was to get the 2 points that were advertised down here, because you needed this city to be surrounded by 6 greeneries. You wouldn't get any bonus points if it was only surrounded by 5 greeneries, for example. And the updated version basically says 1 VP if the city is adjacent to at least 5 greeneries. So now the payoff is lower, but it kicks in at 5 greeneries already. Do I like this better than the original version? It also has a plant tag, which I think makes total sense lore-wise. Do I like this better than the original version? It also has an updated requirement, minus 12% Celsius instead of 8% oxygen. I think that's roughly, I don't know, is it roughly equal? It probably makes the card better because the plant prot in some cases can then be worth considerably more because it can happen that 12% oxygen is reached much faster than the 8%. 12 degrees Celsius is reached much faster than the 8% oxygen, and you have more steps remaining on the oxygen track for this plant prot to kick in and score points. So I think this makes the card stronger. The plant tag obviously makes the card stronger. And then I think this is fine to change it like this. I think the other version was more fun because just a higher threshold, but a higher reward, so greater risk reward, like high risk, high reward kind of card. Green City, the new version, a little bit less that, but probably more consistent, more stronger, and with the adjustment of the requirement and also giving it a plant tag, I think those are lore-wise great changes and make the card, the requirement makes the card a little bit better. So yeah, overall I agree with the change. Then we have steam capture pumps. This is the original version. So in the quote-unquote mini expansion made by Mokeji, there's this new resource, water, that you can accumulate with a few cards, and with Steam Capture Pump, you can remove water from this card to place oceans, and you gain this water by paying power or heat whenever you increase, whenever anyone increases the temperature. This should probably be outlined red, but no matter, this is the old version, because on the new version it's a little bit different. The price changes by 1 MC, as you can see. Gets a little bit more expensive, but the effect gets stronger. The action is still the same. You pay for MC, you pay for water for an ocean, but now whenever anyone raises the temperature, you can pay 1 power to gain 1 water, and whenever you raise the temperature, you may pay 1 heat to gain 1 water here. That, to my understanding, similar to Splice, if you yourself increase the temperature, both of these get triggered or can get triggered. So whenever you increase the temperature, you can pay 1 power plus 1 heat to gain 2 water, which makes this card much better because you can accumulate water faster. And in theory, you could accumulate more water because basically with the first version, if you increased the temperature for all of the steps on the track, you would get X amount of water. And here, because if you do it yourself, and again, if you do all of the temperature steps on the track, you get double the amount of water. You don't need that much water probably, but you can get more and you can get it faster. The cost doesn't really change, but it makes the card better. I think I like it. Cool concept. And then I think lastly, we have water treatment plants. Very simple change. This is the first version. Basically, whenever a tile gets placed next to an ocean, you gain water. Whenever you place a tile, I mean. And this water scores points. And the new version just costs 1 MC more, which I think is fine. Mokeji also clarified, because last time the wording was also changed, because here it says for each ocean next to a non-ocean tile you place, gain 1 water here. And the wording, in my opinion, wasn't that clear whether or not it meant the oceans or the tiles. So if it meant the oceans, you could have only accumulated 9 water here, making the card basically useless. With the new version, the wording has changed. It says when placing a non-ocean tile, gain 1 water here for each adjacent ocean. That's much more clear, even for a dummy like me. And I think this is a great card if you're going for a ground game. If you're ocean walking, you can score a few more points. Also, you can use steel on it. I like it, and I think it's completely fine that it was made 1MC more expensive. So yeah, that's the cards I wanted to go through today. The updates and the new ones. Really, really cool concepts on these. Thanks again for Mokeji for sharing them. And as I said, next episode we will go through the last few cards out of his set. And yeah, if you enjoyed the episode, please leave a like and consider subscribing. And I hope I see you in the next one. Have a good one, guys, and goodbye.